Welcome to our channel. Today we're diving into some of history's strangest coincidences that are actually true. You won't believe how these events are connected. The tapestry of human history is woven with threads of a most curious nature. Sometimes these threads align in patterns so improbable, so astonishing, that they seem to defy mere chance, hinting at a deeper, unseen interconnectedness that binds events across the vast expanse of time. These are not tales of fiction, but documented occurrences that resonate with an almost preternatural symmetry, challenging our understanding of cause and effect. Here, on Treasure Of, we embark on a journey into these remarkable confluences. We shall explore moments where the past seems to echo in the future, where disparate lives and cataclysmic events are linked by chains of coincidence so extraordinary they demand our attention. It is a testament to the endlessly fascinating complexity of our shared story. A reminder that even in the grand, sprawling narrative of human existence, there are moments of uncanny harmony, whispers of an underlying order that we can only glimpse. Prepare yourselves to witness how seemingly unrelated lives mirror one another with chilling precision, how warnings unheeded foreshadow immense tragedy, and how destruction can, paradoxically, pave the way for renewal. These are the moments that make us pause, make us wonder about the subtle forces at play in the unfolding drama of history. Join us as we unravel these incredible, mind-blowing coincidences, each a unique gem unearthed from the rich strata of the past. The annals of leadership are often marked by moments of profound crisis and personal sacrifice. Yet seldom do we find two figures, separated by a century, whose lives and tragic ends mirror each other with such startling and meticulous detail as those of Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. It is a parallel that transcends mere happenstance, inviting us to ponder the very nature of historical patterns, those recurring motifs that seem to play out upon the world stage with an almost scripted precision. Consider first their ascent to the presidency. Lincoln was elected to the United States Congress in 1846, a pivotal time in the nation's formative years. Precisely 100 years later, in 1946, John F. Kennedy was elected to Congress, embarking on a political journey that would also lead him to the highest office in the land. This century-long echo is but the first of many such numerical and biographical alignments that bind these two iconic leaders, suggesting a curious symmetry in their public lives. Both men were deeply concerned with the civil rights of African Americans, a defining moral and political struggle of their respective eras. Lincoln, of course, presided over the abolition of slavery, a monumental shift in the American social fabric. Kennedy, in his time, championed the civil rights movement, striving to dismantle the deeply entrenched systems of segregation and discrimination. Their dedication to this cause, though manifested in different historical contexts, forms a powerful thematic link between their presidencies. The nomenclature surrounding their lives also presents a series of uncanny resemblances. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy, a loyal aide who reportedly warned him against attending Ford's Theater on that fateful night. Conversely, Kennedy's secretary was named Evelyn Lincoln, and she too is said to have advised him against his trip to Dallas in November 1963. Such coincidences, while seemingly minor, add layers to the mystique surrounding their intertwined narratives. The circumstances of their assassins are equally striking. John Wilkes Booth, the man who ended Lincoln's life, was born in 1839. Lee Harvey Oswald, Kennedy's assassin, was born in 1939, again separated by a precise century. Both assassins were known by their three names, a somewhat uncommon practice that became standard in media reporting of their heinous acts, and both names comprise 15 letters. These are details that, in isolation, might be dismissed, but in accumulation they build a compelling case for an extraordinary pattern. Furthermore, both assassins were themselves killed before they could be brought to a full trial, denying the nation a complete judicial reckoning. Booth, after fleeing the theater, was cornered and shot in a Virginia barn. Oswald was shot by Jack Ruby while in police custody, an event broadcast live on television, adding another layer of public trauma. This denial of due process for the assassins only deepened the sense of unresolved tragedy in both instances. The successors to these fallen presidents also share an unlikely connection. Both Lincoln and Kennedy were succeeded by vice presidents named Johnson, Andrew Johnson, who followed Lincoln, and Lyndon B. Johnson, who took office after Kennedy, were both Southerners and former senators. Andrew Johnson was born in 1808, while Lyndon B. Johnson was born in 1908, maintaining that curious, century-long interval that appears so frequently in this narrative. Even the locations of their assassinations bear a resemblance. Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater. Kennedy was shot while riding in a Lincoln limousine, a vehicle manufactured by the Ford Motor Company. The echoes here are almost poetic in their tragic resonance, linking the men through the very instruments and settings of their demise. Such details contribute to the enduring fascination with their parallel lives. Both presidents were shot on a Friday, and in the presence of their wives. Mary Todd Lincoln sat beside her husband just as Jacqueline Kennedy was at her husband's side. The profound personal tragedy for these women, played out on a national stage, further cemented the public's association of these two events, forever linking their grief and the nation's mourning across the decades. The shared timing and companionship in their final moments are deeply poignant. These parallels, numerous and precise, extend beyond simple coincidence. They paint a picture of two lives, lived a century apart, yet marching to a strangely similar rhythm, culminating in national tragedies that shook the United States to its core. The Lincoln-Kennedy coincidences remain one of history's most compelling and unsettling examples of historical mirroring, a story that continues to captivate and mystify those who study the enigmatic currents of the past. The sinking of the RMS Titanic in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic in April 1912 remains one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history. A vessel hailed as unsinkable, a monument to human ingenuity and ambition, met its doom on its maiden voyage, claiming over 1,500 souls. Yet beyond the stark tragedy, the story of the Titanic is interwoven with a series of eerie premonitions, near misses, and uncanny literary foreshadowings that seem to defy rational explanation. One of the most remarkable premonitions came not in the form of a psychic vision, but from the pages of fiction. In 1898, 14 years before the Titanic set sail, an American author named Morgan Robertson published a novella titled Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. The parallels between Robertson's fictional ship, the Titan, and the real-life Titanic are nothing short of astounding. Both were described as the largest ships afloat, deemed virtually unsinkable due to their advanced design, including watertight compartments. Robertson's Titan, much like the Titanic, was a British-owned luxury liner, carrying a complement of wealthy and influential passengers. The fictional vessel, on a voyage in April, struck an iceberg in the North Atlantic on the starboard side, precisely where the Titanic would later meet its own icy adversary. The speed of the Titan at the time of impact was similar to that of the Titanic. The dimensions, tonnage, and even the number of propellers were strikingly alike. Perhaps most chillingly, Robertson's Titan also suffered from a critical shortage of lifeboats, leading to a catastrophic loss of life, a key factor in the real Titanic disaster. The fictional ship sank approximately 400 nautical miles from Newfoundland, the same general vicinity as the Titanic's resting place. The sheer number and specificity of these correspondences led many to believe that Robertson had somehow glimpsed the future, though he himself dismissed such notions, attributing the similarities to his extensive knowledge of shipbuilding and maritime trends. Beyond this literary foreshadowing, several individuals reported unsettling feelings or dreams that deterred them from boarding the ill-fated liner. Anne Ward, a British maid, was scheduled to sail on the Titanic to join her employers in America. However, she experienced a persistent, overwhelming sense of dread, a premonition so strong that she ultimately cancelled her passage, a decision that undoubtedly saved her life. Her intuition, a powerful, unexplainable force, guided her away from tragedy. Another well-documented account involves the family of Major Archibald Butt, a military aide to President Taft. Several of his friends and family members reported having vivid, disturbing dreams about a disaster at sea involving Butt, urging him not to make the voyage. Despite these warnings, Major Butt sailed on the Titanic and perished in the disaster. The collective anxiety of his loved ones stands as a poignant testament to these unheeded premonitions. The Titanic itself experienced a significant near miss even before it left the port of Southampton. As the colossal liner, guided by tugboats, moved down the river Test, Its immense displacement created a powerful suction effect. This force caused the docked passenger liner SS City of New York to break free from its moorings. The New York swung perilously close to the Titanic, a collision averted by mere feet and the quick actions of the tugboat captain. A hair's-breadth escape that could have ended the maiden voyage before it truly began. This incident was seen by some superstitious sailors and passengers as a bad omen, a troubling start to what was supposed to be a triumphant journey. The near collision delayed the Titanic's departure by about an hour, a small shift in its timeline that in the grand unforgiving calculus of fate might have placed it in the path of the fatal iceberg at that precise disastrous moment. Such are the slender threads upon which monumental events can hang. Furthermore, there were reports of a ship, the Californian, being much closer to the Titanic as it sank than its captain later admitted. The Californian had stopped for the night due to ice warnings, the same warnings the Titanic's radio operators had controversially downplayed or failed to relay to the bridge. Crew members on the Californian reportedly saw distress rockets fired by the Titanic but failed to rouse their captain or properly investigate, a decision that has been debated and condemned for over a century. The story of the Titanic is therefore not just one of hubris and tragedy, but also of strange echoes and unheeded whispers. From fictional accounts that mirrored reality with uncanny accuracy to personal premonitions and near disasters, the narrative is rich with elements that suggest a confluence of forces beyond simple misfortune. It serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the veil between the known and the unknown seems perilously thin, particularly in moments preceding great catastrophe. In the mid-17th century, the city of London, a bustling, overcrowded metropolis, was visited by two catastrophic events in terrifyingly close succession: the Great Plague of 1665 and the Great Fire of London in 1666. While seemingly distinct disasters, one a silent, creeping death and the other a roaring, indiscriminate inferno, these two events are inextricably linked in a grim yet ultimately transformative embrace. The fire, in its destructive fury, paradoxically became an agent of purification. The Great Plague, the last major outbreak of bubonic plague in England, descended upon London with horrifying speed and lethality. Spread by fleas carried on black rats which thrived in the city's unsanitary conditions, the disease brought London to its knees. Houses were marked with red crosses, their inhabitants sealed within, the dead collected by night in carts, their passing heralded by the mournful cry, "Bring out your dead!" A miasma of fear and despair choked the city at its peak. The plague claimed thousands of lives each week. The narrow, timber-framed houses, crammed together along squalid alleyways, provided the perfect breeding ground for the disease-carrying vermin. Sanitation was rudimentary at best. Refuse and waste littered the streets, contributing to an environment where pestilence could flourish unchecked. London in 1665 was a city teetering on the brink of utter collapse under the weight of this invisible enemy. Then, in the early hours of Sunday, September 2nd, 1666, a small fire ignited in a bakery on Pudding Lane. Fanned by a strong easterly wind, the flames rapidly spread through the tightly packed wooden structures of the medieval city. For 4 relentless days, the Great Fire of London raged, consuming everything in its path. The city's primitive firefighting methods, reliant on bucket brigades and the demolition of buildings to create firebreaks, proved woefully inadequate against the inferno's might. The scale of destruction was almost unimaginable. Over 13,000 houses, 87 parish churches, St. Paul's Cathedral, and most of the buildings of the city authorities were reduced to ashes and smouldering ruins. Tens of thousands were left homeless, their livelihoods destroyed, the very fabric of their existence torn asunder. Yet amidst this widespread devastation, an unintended consequence of profound significance began to emerge. The intense heat of the fire, reaching temperatures capable of melting lead roofing and stone, acted as a brutal yet effective sterilizing agent. It incinerated the filth and debris that had accumulated in the city's slums for centuries. More crucially, it is widely believed that the fire killed vast numbers of the rats and fleas that were the primary vectors for the bubonic plague. The very conditions that had allowed the plague to thrive were consumed by the flames. While the plague had already begun to wane by the time the fire broke out, its complete disappearance from London in the years immediately following the blaze is a striking correlation. The fire effectively scoured the most densely populated and unsanitary parts of the city, disrupting the ecological niche of the plague carriers. The old, cramped, rat-infested wooden buildings were gone, replaced in the subsequent rebuilding effort by structures of brick and stone built on wider streets. This rebuilding, guided by new regulations aimed at preventing future conflagrations, also inadvertently contributed to improved public health. Wider streets allowed for better air circulation, and the use of less combustible materials made dwellings less hospitable to vermin. Though born from immense suffering and loss, the Great Fire paved the way for a healthier, more resilient London. It was a brutal form of urban renewal, a fiery baptism. Thus, the Great Fire of London, a catastrophe in its own right, can be seen as a grim but necessary catalyst in ending the recurring nightmare of the plague in the capital. It is a powerful example of how, sometimes, out of profound destruction, unforeseen benefits can arise. The relationship between these two events is a complex interplay of disaster and deliverance, a stark reminder of nature's often harsh and uncompromising ways of restoring balance. The ashes of the old city became the foundation for a new London, one less susceptible to the ravages of both fire and disease. This tragic yet transformative chapter in London's history illustrates a profound, if brutal, coincidence. The conflagration that destroyed so much also cleansed, creating an environment where the shadow of the plague would no longer loom so menacingly. The smoke cleared to reveal not just ruins but the unexpected dawn of a safer era. History is replete with tales of curses, of ancient tombs whose disturbance is said to unleash misfortune upon those who dare to violate their sanctity. Among the most compelling and unsettling of these is the story surrounding the tomb of Tamerlane, the formidable 14th century Turco-Mongol conqueror whose final resting place in Samarkand, modern-day Uzbekistan, became the focal point of a chilling coincidence in the summer of 1941. Tamerlane, also known as Timur, was a military genius and a ruthless warrior whose empire stretched across vast swathes of Persia, Central Asia and India. His campaigns were marked by both sophisticated strategy and brutal efficiency, leaving a legacy of conquest and, for some, terror. Upon his death in 1405, he was interred in a magnificent mausoleum, the Guri Amir, a site of reverence and, as legend would have it, potent spiritual power. For centuries, Tamerlane's tomb lay undisturbed, a silent monument to his formidable reign. Inscriptions on the tomb itself were said to carry warnings against its desecration. One such inscription reportedly read, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble." Another, more direct, purportedly stated, "Whosoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Such pronouncements, whether apocryphal or genuine, added to the mystique and trepidation surrounding the conqueror's remains. In June 1941, a team of Soviet archaeologists, led by Mikhail Gerasimov, arrived in Samarkand with the intention of exhuming Tamerlane's body. Their purpose was scientific: to verify his identity, study his physical characteristics, and perhaps reconstruct his appearance. Despite local elders and religious leaders voicing concerns and repeating the ancient warnings of a curse, the Soviet authorities, operating under an officially atheistic state ideology, pressed ahead with the excavation. On June 19th or 20th, 1941, accounts vary slightly on the exact date, Gerasimov and his team successfully opened Tamerlane's sarcophagus. Inside, they found the skeleton of a tall, powerful man, consistent with historical descriptions of the conqueror, who was known to have a lame leg. The scientific mission appeared to be a success, the ancient warnings seemingly just folklore. But the timing of this event would soon take on a terrifying significance. Just 2 days later, on June the 22nd, 1941, Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the massive surprise invasion of the Soviet Union by Nazi Germany. This colossal military undertaking, involving millions of soldiers, tanks and aircraft, plunged the Soviet Union into its darkest hour, initiating some of the most brutal and devastating warfare in human history. The world did indeed tremble, and an invader, arguably more terrible in the scope of his genocidal ambitions than Tamerlane, had been unleashed upon Soviet soil. The temporal proximity of the tomb's opening and the Nazi invasion was too stark to ignore. For many, especially within the Soviet Union and Central Asia, the connection was immediate and chilling. The ancient curse, dismissed as a superstition by the scientists, seemed to have manifested with horrifying punctuality. The story quickly spread, fueling a narrative that the disturbance of Tamerlane's eternal rest had brought calamitous war upon the land. The Soviet government, initially dismissive of such notions, reportedly grew uneasy as the war progressed disastrously for them in its early stages. According to some accounts, Joseph Stalin himself became concerned by the persistent rumors of the curse. Whether driven by genuine belief or a desire to appease public sentiment and boost morale, a decision was made to re-inter Tamerlane's remains with full Islamic rites. In November 1942, as the tide of war was beginning to turn with the pivotal Battle of Stalingrad, Tamerlane's bones were reportedly flown back to Samarkand and reburied with appropriate ceremony. Coincidentally or not, the Soviet victory at Stalingrad, which concluded in early 1943, marked a crucial turning point on the Eastern Front, beginning the Red Army's long and arduous push back towards Berlin. This subsequent event further cemented the legend of the curse in popular imagination. Whether the opening of Tamerlane's tomb and the Nazi invasion were a mere coincidence of timing or something more profound is, of course, a matter of belief and interpretation. Skeptics rightly point out that Operation Barbarossa was a meticulously planned military campaign, years in the making, its launch date determined by strategic and logistical factors, not by events in a Samarkand mausoleum. Yet, the dramatic and precise alignment of these two world-altering events continues to fascinate and unnerve, a potent reminder of how humanity often seeks patterns and meaning in the face of overwhelming and terrifying historical forces. The Hoover Dam, a colossal feat of engineering that tamed the mighty Colorado River and transformed the American Southwest, stands as a testament to human ambition and perseverance. Its construction during the Great Depression was a monumental undertaking, a symbol of hope and progress in an era of profound hardship. Yet woven into the fabric of this awe-inspiring structure is a poignant and remarkably symmetrical coincidence concerning the first and last men to lose their lives during its perilous construction. The building of the Hoover Dam, then known as the Boulder Dam, began in 1931. It was a dangerous and arduous task, attracting thousands of workers desperate for employment. They toiled in scorching desert heat, scaling sheer canyon walls, handling explosives and pouring millions of tons of concrete. The working conditions were often hazardous, and the project would ultimately claim the lives of many, though official figures vary and are sometimes debated. Among the very first individuals involved in the preliminary work for the dam was John Gregory Tierney, a surveyor. His task was essential, involving the meticulous mapping and assessment of the treacherous Black Canyon terrain where the dam would rise. Surveying in such rugged and unforgiving conditions was fraught with peril, requiring skill, courage, and a degree of luck to navigate the steep cliffs and unpredictable river. Tragically, on December 20th, 1922, nearly a decade before the main construction officially commenced, but during the initial survey period that was integral to the project's feasibility, J.G. Tierney drowned in the turbulent waters of the Colorado River. He was scouting for ideal geological formations for the dam site, and his death was recorded as one of the early, if not the very first fatality associated with the vast undertaking that would become the Hoover Dam. His loss underscored the inherent dangers of confronting such a formidable natural force. And the construction pressed on through the 1930s, a hive of relentless activity. Men from all corners of the nation converged on this remote stretch of desert, enduring extreme temperatures, the risk of rockfalls, accidents with heavy machinery, and illnesses like pneumonia exacerbated by carbon monoxide fumes in the diversion tunnels. Each worker knew the risks, yet they persevered, driven by necessity and a sense of contributing to something truly monumental. As the dam neared completion and the once wild Colorado River was brought under control, the project began to wind down. The final stages involved finishing touches, cleanup, and the phasing out of the massive workforce. It was during this period that the second part of this extraordinary coincidence unfolded, bringing a somber symmetry to the human cost of the dam's creation. On December 20th, 1935, precisely 13 years to the day after J.G. Tierney lost his life, another fatality occurred. This time, the victim was Patrick William Tierney, who fell from one of the intake towers on the Arizona side of the dam into the canyon. Patrick William Tierney was the son of J.G. Tierney, the surveyor who had perished in the river 13 years prior. The stark symmetry of these two deaths, father and son, both perishing in connection with the dam's creation, their deaths separated by exactly 13 years, occurring on the very same calendar date of December 20th, is profoundly arresting. It forms a tragic bookend to the period of the dam's construction, a somber echo across the years that binds one family's sacrifice to this iconic American landmark in a uniquely poignant way. While officially, 96 men are listed as having died from industrial accidents during the construction between 1931 and its dedication in 1935, the story of the Tierneys often stands apart due to its incredible and melancholic pattern. J.G. Tierney's death, occurring before the main contract was awarded, is sometimes not included in the official toll of construction deaths, yet his work was undeniably foundational. Patrick's death occurred just as the main phase was concluding. This father-son tragedy serves as a powerful human story amidst the staggering statistics of concrete poured and electricity generated. It reminds us that behind every great feat of engineering there are individual lives, personal sacrifices, and stories of human endeavor and loss. The Hoover Dam, a symbol of power and control over nature, also stands as a silent memorial to those like the Tierneys, who paid the ultimate price in its creation, their lives linked by an almost unbelievable twist of fate. As we draw our exploration to a close, the echoes of these mind-blowing coincidences linger, don't they? From the mirrored fates of presidents to the premonitions surrounding a doomed liner, from a city's fiery salvation to a conqueror's disturbed slumber, and the symmetrical sorrow at a great dam, history reveals itself not merely as a sequence of events, but as a realm of profound and often inexplicable connections. These occurrences challenge our perception of probability and invite us to marvel at the intricate, sometimes unsettling patterns woven into the human experience. These stories remind us that the past is not a static landscape, but a dynamic source of wonder and mystery. The threads that link these disparate moments are a testament to the richness and complexity of our collective journey. Perhaps they are mere quirks of chance, the inevitable outcome of countless events playing out over millennia. Or perhaps they hint at something more, a subtle undercurrent that shapes our destinies in ways we are only beginning to comprehend. Whatever their true nature, they enrich our understanding of history, transforming it from a dry recitation of facts into a vibrant living narrative. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more fascinating historical facts. See you next time. Here at Treasure Of, we believe that every artifact, every story, every coincidence holds a piece of the puzzle, a clue to the incredible saga of humanity. Join us again as we continue to unearth the treasures of the past.